Well, Russia is offering to mediate talks between the U.S. and North Korea if both sides agree. Moscow is urging the U.S. to make the first move and start negotiations as soon as possible. The U.S. has said it wants Pyongyang to show it wants to return to the negotiating table. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson that aggressive rhetoric from Washington is not helping. Meanwhile, the U.S. is trying to put more pressure on Pyongyang by imposing new sanctions on two officials believed to have improved North Korea's nuclear weapons. The U.S. says Ri Pyong-chol has been crucial in developing the regime's intercontinental missiles, and rocket scientist Kim Jong-sik was key in creating missiles that can be launched faster. Analysts believe leader Kim Jong-un holds both men in high regard. Well, foreign policy analyst Ari Aramesh joins us now from Los Angeles. Ari, good to see you. So, for years, the North Korean regime has defied multilateral and bilateral sanctions. So, do you expect that the targeting of two high-ranking North Korean officials will bring about a change in North Korean behavior now?
It's the right move, but it's not going to change much. It seems like the leadership in North Korea has gotten accustomed to getting concessions from the international community and the U.S. through two methods. A, testing more ballistic missiles and nuclear sort of weapons, or cyber attacks holding companies, private businesses, and at times military installations at hostage to take ransom. I would say in the year to come, in 2018, you will see an intensification and an increase in the number of tests and its intensity. It doesn't seem like it that the North Korean leadership at this point will back off. Having said that, it is the right move. We have to sanction key individuals. We have to bring more pressure on the North Koreans. But we should also know that our options coming to a nuclear-armed North Korea are very limited.
Yeah, I mean, because we need to give our viewers some context. I mean, these sanctions announced today against these two high-ranking officials follow the UN sanctions adopted this past Friday, which are all about closing down North Korea's ability to access foreign currency. I mean, this is the most sanctioned state on earth. And they keep on moving. I mean, I know you say this is the right measure for this moment in time. I mean, what's left? What's left to sanction?
Not much. Next move will probably be a sanction on certain kinds of luxury goods. Back in the late 90s, a little sort of unofficial embargo not allowing Hennessy and Marlboro Reds into North Korea brought Kim Jong-un's dad, Kim Jong-il, to the table. We all know that he was a big fan of Johnny Walker Black Label, Hennessy, and the good old stuff. Now, again, I'm not sure if even hitting luxury goods or tightening the noose around the North Korean economy, the non-existent North Korean economy, is going to do much good, knowing that we also don't have much of a military option. Now, it's time for the Chinese to show some leadership. And it's also time for the president to lean on the Chinese so finally they can actually rise to the occasion and bring the North Koreans to a rational and reasonable conclusion that this is not the way to deal with the international community. But they know, A, military option for the most part is off the table because they have a nuclear capability, and B, aside from the nuclear capabilities, their conventional military might can do enough damage to our ally, South Korea, that for any sort of reasonable president will eliminate a military option against the Koreans. So let's hope our Chinese friends will be more proactive here. But again, even they know that they have limited leverage when it comes to dealing with the government of Kim Jong-un and company.
I mean, isn't that just the reality here? I mean, we have been talking about North Korea for years. You know the country, you know the way it has operated in the past. I mean, it's notable that you said when it comes to China, let's hope, that Beijing puts pressure on them. I mean, that really is all Washington can do, really, effectively at this stage, bearing in mind that, China is also part of the Security Council. All they can do is really hope that they change and put more pressure on Pyongyang. So I guess that brings us to the Russia situation. We've been hearing from Russia in the last 2 days saying more and more loudly that the U.S. needs to take the first move. They need to be open to sitting down to talk. They need to tone down the rhetoric. I mean, is Russia onto something here, bearing in mind the way the U.S. has been operating to date has not yielded a change in Pyongyang's behavior?
You know, in the old days of the wild, wild West, even the old criminals from the South and the East Coast could become sheriffs in the wild, wild West. If Russia becomes a mediator in this ongoing sort of a fiasco between North Korea and not just the U.S., but the rest of the world, I don't see a good outcome here. Let's keep in mind that North Korea is not violating U.S. law or U.S. sanctions or U.S. demands. North Korea is in violation of multiple international resolutions by the UN Security Council. It's in violation of international law. And the world almost unanimously has asked the North Koreans to stop what they're doing. There are a few pariahs that have yet to condemn North Korea. But if you put those pariahs aside, everyone on the UN Security Council, that includes Russia, China, the United Kingdom, France, the United States, all of the international community, including India and Brazil and South Africa, the list goes on and on and on and on, have asked the North Koreans to stop. The world is fed up. Now, if the Russians try to act like the mediators here, they can also try to throw the ball in our court. And they would also up the ante for the Americans, saying, listen, you are also to blame to some extent for what these madmen, the Kim family, has done to North Korea for the past 60-some-odd years. That is not a good outcome. The U.S. should stand firm, should be stern, and should try to use the international community, especially China, to try to slow down the rogue regime of Kim Jong-un. A Russia role here could not be a positive one.
And I think most would agree with you that most would raise the question about as to whether Russia is acting as a good faith actor here by putting its hand up and saying, let me mediate. I think most would agree. But I think there's also the point to be made here that there's a lot of trying, wishing, and a hoping when it comes to North Korea. But the actions to date, even with the entire world condemning North Korea for violating UN sanctions, has not yielded a change in North Korea's behavior. Under Kim Jong-un, we have seen more tests than we saw, you know, with his forebears, if you will, his father. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think many would agree with you. But it is not working, Ari. It is not working what is happening so far.
You know, just because something is not working, it doesn't mean we have to do something worse. You know, if an alcoholic is sick of, drinking one kind of alcohol, switching to another drink is not going to help his or her problem. The problem here.
The problem here is that they have nuclear weapons, Ari. That's the problem here. That they are.
And we didn't do a good job trying to prevent them from going nuclear. But again, even back then, with their conventional capabilities, with the threat they could pose to South Korea and to Seoul directly, our hands were almost tied. But it's sort of the lesson to be learned, to what we can take home from this is do not let rogue regimes go nuclear, because once they get that, they have an insurance policy forever. Now, with Russia here getting involved, the reason you're right, we don't have a lot of good options. We're almost out of options. We can try to slow them down, contain them, get a little help from the Chinese. But by bringing the Russians here, they don't have a whole lot of leverage. Yes, North Korean airplanes do fly into Russia. Yes, there is some limited trade between Russia and North Korea, but it's nothing compared to the amount of leverage and influence China has on North Korea. By bringing the Russians in, now we're also legitimizing yet another bad actor in the international community. And we're also granting sort of an elevation of status to the Russians who have long sought to go back to the Soviet days and try to do what they want to do for very little cost. Now, again, options are limited. I get it, but we don't have to go a much worse option just because our current option is not working perfectly.
Ari Aramesh, I think we are in agreement that there are no good options here, and we shall see the next move on the part of the international community. North Korea has said that they consider the latest UN sanctions an act of war, so we shall see what happens in the days ahead. Ari Aramesh, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much.